You are watching CIOTV by Enterprise IT World, a production of Accent Infomedia.
Thank you, Dhruvi.
Thanks.
In my introductory remark, I said that this age is digital age where we have already entered into a digital economy. Everybody's experience now in this very forum we are experiencing, like two of our esteemed panelists are virtually connected. You can see on the back, and I can also see on the television there in front of me. This is possible because of the digital excellence that we have achieved. This is one thing. The other thing is that the way the consumption of IT happening, consumption of the products happening, the buying pattern happening, everybody. Today, if you are asking for any food, food is being delivered through Zomato and Swiggy and other apps. So that's another excellence, another, I can say the gift of the IT industry or digitization. That is probably the reason that we are seeing that there is exponential growth in data and the place where we are seeing the data being hosted, or the place where data being orchestrated is nothing but data center. That's the reason the market size of the data center from 4 billion is going to touch 10 billion, if I'm not wrong, gentlemen, in 2022-27 time frame. Within 5 years is going to grow. We have got 200, I think we have got 600 villages connected over broadband, and the buying pattern is also going to be replicated as the city people be in Bombay, Delhi, or Bangalore people are doing, and the villages are going to buy. It has already picked up buying pattern, and who is going to provide that? It's the catalyst are the data center companies in a safe, secure manner. And the compliances, which is enabling the data center mushroom in India. Government of India has already taken cognizance, and data center parks are being created, and it has already been said that DC infrastructure is actually an infrastructure equivalent to your airports and other infra. So look at the importance of this industry, how it is going to grow. But obviously there are challenges in between. Challenges, there are hue and cry. People are complaining that it's a, power guzzler. It is consuming entire city's power. Plus, we have got cloud computing, which is, I do not know whether it is competing or complementing. I think gentlemen around me, 4 gentlemen, one of them will definitely going to answer this. We'll obviously get the answer first, and we'll proceed to other things. And technologies like IoT, edge computing, 5G, artificial intelligence also have play in data center. So these are the technology piece. The other one, you can see the sustainability and using the alternative energy, how to minimize the cost of the energy. That's also concerned, so that we can shut others' mouths like saying that what we are doing, we are giving back to you also. I mean, that the efforts are there, that the DC companies are having self-reliant on as far as power generation is concerned, and this trend is going to grow. So with this, we have already the introduction of gentlemen. We have got to my left, Mr. Paresh, Shetty, President, Cell, CtrlS Data Center. Piyush, Somani, Managing Director, Chairman, ESDS, who is virtually connected. Prasenjit Roy, Senior Executive Vice President and CMO, Entity Global Data Center and Cloud Infrastructure India. So also to my right is Anand Singh, India Head, Colocation and Cloud Business. Werks Data Center, Iron Mount Data Center Joint Venture. So this was in news, I think, a couple of months, year back, I think, right? Almost like a year back. All right. So when I said cloud and data center, let us make it clear whether cloud computing, will it be a cloud computing data center, or will it be a data center versus cloud? Of course, we have a panel discussion after this. But we have got gentlemen, Piyush, I'll come to you first. What is your take on this? What is the play of cloud and versus data center?
Yeah, hi Sanjay. Good evening, everyone. So nice to connect with all of you. And that's a very important question. I would really like to give a background to that. So what is happening at the moment with cloud? So Sanjay, am I audible?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes. Okay, perfect. So what is happening at the moment is that startups are born in cloud. We all know that there is either AWS or Azure or Google, or there are a couple of other cloud players also in the market. And startups prefer to be there on this hyperscaler cloud platforms. But after a certain size, the startups feel that, okay, now cloud is becoming more and more expensive, because when you grow big in cloud, startups are not able to sustain. And we've seen startups coming out on a private cloud model. So then where does the private cloud go? That private cloud goes in a data center. We've seen this happening with some of the largest enterprises also. And a lot of CDN content players also, they've also moved on a private cloud. They have set up their own data centers, or they have co-located into other data centers. So this trend will continue. People who go to a certain size, and then when they don't need the scalability of the cloud, when they have more predicted workload, they prefer to go on a data center model. So this in the future, data centers will also grow, cloud will also grow. Now, will cloud compete with data centers? So yes, cloud will also at some point compete with data centers. Data center will have certain advantage when there is a scale. When you need 100 rack colo, 200 rack colo, when an organization grows to that size, they will have an advantage going on a colo model. And the future technologies, especially the GPU technology, AI, ML, all the IoT technologies, so all the next generation technologies, they will consume so much of compute that utilizing, taking all those workloads on cloud will not be affordable for organizations. Your monthly bill is going to be beyond your budgets. So for that reason, people would want to do a CapEx, capital investment, and take those workloads on a colo model. And that is where the colo demand is rising. The reason we are seeing gigawatts of new capacity coming in Mumbai itself, there is a 3 gigawatt of capacity coming in. The reason is that there is a demand rising for co-location also.
Right. Well said. Thank you, Piyush. You said that technology is, IoT kind of things. I also said that 5G is artificial intelligence. These are influencing the market, and these have got to play in data center operate, right? So I'll come to Prasenjit on the AI part, on the technology part, how these techs playing in DCs.
Thanks, Sanjay, and good evening, everybody, and my panel members. Sanjay, reiterating what you just said, okay, so India is one of the fastest developing economies with explosive growth in the internet economy. I think the data center industry in India is growing around 20%, and as per JLL, the DC market in megawatt terms is going to double by 2023-24. If I'm looking at AI in particular, Sanjay, to your question, there have been some recent advances, okay, in AI and which are making possible, like, if you can automate many processes of DC operations. For example, AI can be used to automatically scan and update software updates or patches. It can be used to proactively identify and alert issues with network or application performance or security, for example. It can also improve your data center performance and reliability through the ability to predict failure and optimize performance of the IT infrastructure. And more importantly, it can forecast capacity and help in enterprise scale their IT infrastructure accordingly. Besides this, Sanjay, there are also industry-leading SaaS-based AI ops platform that simplifies IT operations and drives reliability to the use of ML and analytics. These platforms are capable of predicting potential failure, identifying performance degradations, and this comes in very handy to any data center players. They increase the operational efficiency and the use of management through unified analytics and 360-degree enterprise dashboard view operations. If I look at IMS, which is Infrastructure Managed Services, this has enhanced with the help of AI-based technology operations and zero incident framework platform. What does all this do, Sanjay? This helps in delighting the customers, introducing very high levels of service assurance, service reliability, and observability to the IT infrastructure with the adoption of AI ops. This is one part of it, Sanjay. If I look at the other dimensions that AI helps in a big way, one is handling the workload efficiency. Okay, with the usage of AI and machine learning, patterns can be detected to learn from past data and distribute workloads across the peak periods. Second part, Sanjay, is the energy efficiency. We are constantly focusing on consolidating servers and upgrading old and energy inefficient IT infrastructure with new AI-driven smart systems. This helps in superior airflow management in DCs, and there is a great impact as 25% of all power consumed by DC is used only for cooling purpose. The third part is proactive management of hardware. AI systems can help organizations in proactively managing the health of their IT infrastructure, such as storage, servers, or network equipment. It can also help in security, okay, with great impact in security operations center in a data center. And lastly, could be helping in staffing also. It can have a big role in automating many of the tasks that human agents do today, Sanjay. So, there are multitude of ways AI is helping the data center operators, Sanjay.
All right, Prasenjit, I think valid point. I'll bring in Anand Singh here also from the points that Prasenjit said about these newest technologies which are bringing in efficiency, enhancing the efficiency of a data center. And I think it's also creating a cost benefit for the customers, which ultimately will be passed to the customer. So your take on this?
So good evening, everyone. Good evening to panelists. So if you talk about data center, so data center is at the core of any digital ecosystem. If you talk about any advancements or innovation or adoption that happens in new technologies, where you talk about cloud, IoT, AI, robotics, or 5G, which is around the corner now, is basically helping create a lot of data, and that is driving digital ecosystem. So this data which is getting generated, exabytes of data which is getting generated on day-to-day basis, it needs to be stored somewhere. The best place to store is basically a data center, right? That's where we come in as a data center player. So data center is basically provides critical infrastructures which helps you secure that data and basically help you modify that data, basically secure that data inside the data center, and helps you you reuse that data whenever it is required. So my take is, as this digital adoption increases in days ahead, obviously data center consumption will increase, whether it be at the core or at the edge.
All right, Anand. The other thing that we are hearing, that India is becoming hub of data center, isn't it? And with this argument, I think we can see that globally there are moratorium, officially, unofficially. Of course, the Singapore, I think, is the brightest country, so also Hong Kong. Singapore, of course, I'm seeing the news that there is ease in moratorium. They have probably, I don't know, I mean, what is the latest one? I don't see. And the content that consumption is happening in the priority of government within India, it is growing also. The e-commerce, e-procurement, everything is growing. Plus data from outside getting dumped here. If I'm using the right language, dump, I do not know, but then that's what is the benefit for data center companies, for the economy of India. What's your, Paresh, what's your thought around India becoming global hub?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Piyush, Prasenjit, Anand. It's a great topic. I mean, for everybody in the panel and those who are associated with the data center industry, we all know that data center is in the boom phase. In fact, we don't know how big the boom is going to be. But very clearly, any statistics, whether it is CRISIL or anybody we are talking about, from 820 megawatts, it will double or triple in the next 2 or 3 years. We are talking about 2000 megawatts or 2 gigabytes. In fact, Piyush was talking about it's going to be about 3 gigawatts. That's what it's going to be. And that's only in Mumbai in the next 5 years. So the growth is phenomenal. And in India, it's going to be the brightest thing. So anybody associated with data center industry is going to be good. We are going to get a lot of competition. That's also going to be good because there's going to be meat for everybody. Now, why is it happening? It's basically because of the 3Ds, which we keep talking about. It's about the data boom, which Anand talked about, Prasenjit also talked about, the amount of data that we are generating. Just to let you know, the number of internet users, 825 million, and 1.4 billion populations, we have 825 million people using internet. Amit was talking about TikTok and everywhere, rural, all the other cities, they are using internet. Just to go by that, and US has got about 330 million population, probably all are internet connected, but they are still half of us, right? And then you have per internet user, the amount of GB that they're consuming, right? In US is close to about 14 or 15 GB. We are in India already at 17 GB, and that's slated to come to 25 or 30 GB. So look at the amount of data that is being consumed by India. So there's going to be a huge data consumption. Data is there. So you have the data boom, then you have the digital adoption, and the third is domestic storage. So these 3Ds is going to help India to be the main focus area. Now, with this, if I compare that to US, we have only 210 data centers in India, okay, third-party data centers, whereas US has more than 2,000 data centers, more than 2,000, which means they are 10x, okay? In terms of capacity or utilization, you can talk about
versus 4 billion and 4 trillion and 22 trillion.
Yeah, so that's what it is. Whereas their utilization is close to about 3,000 gigawatts, whereas we are only about 500. We are the second, by the way, from US. Singapore is about 415. Hong Kong is about 450. So Australia is about 460, 470. And Singapore is already saying, we'll not have more data centers. Of course, they are trying to release a little bit. But having said that, India very clearly, and the government recognizes it, MeitY recognizes it, all the state governments are recognizing it. So they see data center as a great service industry. They're recognizing this industry. So the norms are being, made in favor of that thing. So a lot of things are helping to be India the, probably the hub in Asia Pacific. We might serve multiple other countries from here. So that's another thing. We are not even looking at that. If we look at that, then probably we might grow 5 times or 6 times. So clearly we can see, why India should be an attractive market for it. One is the policies. Secondly is the growth. Okay. And compare it to what it is abroad. We are nowhere. So next 3 years, it has to be there. And why it will happen is because even today, 70% of data is on premise. And that's all going to shift. Either it's going to shift colo or private cloud like what Piyush talked, or it will go to cloud. And in fact, in Amit's slide, it showed, from 1% or 10%, it is going to kind of move to 40% in public cloud and might be 30 to 40% in co-location. So there's going to be a huge movement there. So from on-premise, it will move to data center, either in any of the forms, private cloud or the public cloud or colo. So this is a boom period for all of us, and it is good for India, and it's good for all the players in data center or those who are associated there. Thank you.
I think I should bring in Piyush here to throw some lights. Maybe 1 minute you can take, Piyush. Do you have any different or additional complementing thoughts around DC boom in India?
So you rightly mentioned about the number of data centers in India. Around 200 data centers are there in India at the moment. But let us compare ourselves with Japan. So rather than comparing with America, so Sanjay also pointed out that America is a 22. I think it's around more than that actually. Last I heard was that they are 27 or 28 $trillion economy, America. Yeah. So, and India is hopeful of reaching $5 trillion in next 2 or 3 years, or maybe in next 4 years also. Let us compare ourselves with Japan, because our next target is to surpass the economy of Japan. Where is Japan today? So Japan is already 10x in terms of data center capacity. Such a small island country, and they are known to have earthquakes and disasters also. But they also have more than 200 large data centers. Now, 200 data centers of India Majority of them are much smaller than the data centers of Japan. So what they are consuming over there, but they had anticipated all this long time back. We did not anticipate, and even right now, we do not have any understanding of what is going to happen in the future. So we start creating infrastructure after we face a situation. When we see like 1 million vehicles on the road, then we start constructing roads. So we actually do that. Same thing we are going to do with the data centers also. When the tiger would have outgrown your home, and then it starts eating your own people at home, then you start creating a forest for the tiger. So that is going to happen in India. The government is not able to understand that data centers are a compulsory necessity actually for the economy. You cannot restrict those data centers with your laws which are enforced on other industries. So what government is doing is the data centers cannot generate their own power, or they cannot transport power from one location to other location. You have to buy power from government only. How will we buy power from government when we need 20 gigawatts of power? Government is already struggling to give power to whatever is there in the country at the moment. So all the discoms and transcos, they are already having all that extra stress on them, because you need to keep farmers happy, you need to keep industrialists happy, and data centers are a compulsion for you. So allow us to now, only one state I have seen lately, Telangana is the only state which has understood that data centers can be the biggest problem of the country and can also be the biggest opportunity of the country. What they've done is, you come to Telangana, generate your own power anywhere in Telangana and transport that. Whether you generate solar power, you store a solar power, wind power generated during the daytime, consume that during the night time, whatever you want to do. Your government is not going to charge you anything. Government is not going to restrict anything. But in other states, the problem is that if you want to transport solar power from one part of the state to other part, they will charge 4 rupees, 5 rupees. You want to store power, then again there are charges on it. You want to use generator, there is a license on that. You have to pay for generation also. So there are so many complications in the other states that the opportunity would be missed by the other states. And if tomorrow Telangana becomes the data center hub, and 10 gigawatts and 20 gigawatts of data center capacity getting installed in Telangana, I think so they would have made the most out of the opportunity. It is very likely that this will happen. And cities like Mumbai in the long run might lose out. Today, very clearly around our data center in Mumbai, I can see 3 gigawatts of new capacity coming in. In fact, very soon we also are planning to scale up beyond 50 megawatts in Mumbai itself. But there are other players, the larger players, who are bringing 3 gigawatts of capacity. Just the Mahape area, the Airoli and Mahape area will see 3 gigawatts installed capacity in next 2 years' time. So will Mumbai have an advantage in the long run? I think so. Mumbai would have experience a lot of challenge in the future. We need to sensitize the government in Maharashtra, central government also, that come up with policies now, so that this business complements the growth of the economy.
All right, Piyush. Yeah, very good insight. You mentioned about the technologies, the energy consumption, and in addition to that, the sustainability. Let's spend maybe 5 minutes or 7 minutes on that. So sustainability versus data center. Of course, we'll come to the energy consumption after this. Probably Prasenjit can answer this. What is the future?
Thanks, Sanjay. Sanjay, sustainability is now attracting the attention of the boardrooms. And the good part is it's an important competitive differentiator for data centers. Sanjay, 2-3 times in that today you have mentioned that data centers are power clusters. Okay, DC account for 3% of the world's total power consumption. The future data center is green, Sanjay, and green data centers are energy efficient and have lower environmental footprints. There are focus areas for green facilities, Sanjay. I'll call them out. So one is the renewable and zero carbon energy sources, where you need to optimize your consumption versus automation and efficient hardware. This is one of the musts. Second is the construction. If you look at the climate neutral and cement and steel, all this needs to get into consideration for creating the green facilities. Third is the water part. How are you using the optimal utilization and the treatment of the water? Fourth is the waste, the management of e-waste. Fifth, Sanjay, is the alignment to ASHRAE cooling standards. Sixth is optimizing the power management part of it. And lastly is the high efficiency equipment. All these are needed and focus areas for building green data centers, which majority of the data center players are now focusing on. What do all this results in? What is the output? We get a lower PUE, we get a lower operating cost, efficient cooling, and absolutely a reduction in the carbon footprint. I'll tell what we are doing, Sanjay, so that will help you to understand. With NDT Global Data Centers, we invest in renewable energy for a sustainable future. And we follow multi-dimensional approach, Sanjay. First one is the source of power. So exploring alternate power sources, okay, be it either solar power plants, wind power to open access for DCs in Chennai and Bangalore. So we are investing to build capacities, okay. So as we speak, we are building up solar power plants in Mumbai and in Bangalore. We're investing in renewable energy with multiple partners to achieve our objective of turning carbon neutral by 2030. So this is one of the things that we have already called out in the ecosystem. Second, Sanjay, is how are we doing the globally benchmark sustainable design? Okay, so you need to build DCs and obtain a LEED certification under IGBC or under USGBC. So we have platinum LEED certification for Bangalore, multiple data centers, and also the MAPI. In fact, one of the first data centers, Chennai, was the first gold LEED certified by USGBC in India. Third, Sanjay, is the operations part of it. You need to have sustainability that can run for 30 years, 35 years. And there all the play of the sewage treatment plant, air cool towers. You need to also choose locations that have a reliable source of power. Why that is important, Sanjay? Because the simple reason that the consumption of diesel has to be the bare minimum, thereby reduce the carbon footprints. So, when you are choosing the location, this also comes into consideration. And the fourth is the AI-based system to optimize the energy consumption. So there's a whole play of things that you need to do in order to ensure that you invest in renewable energy, you invest in sustainability, and you invest as a core corporate social citizen looking at the entire ecosystem.
All right, thank you, Prasenjit. The one very important one which I pointed out at the beginning is the data power guzzler. DCs are considered. So how to demystify that? Paresh, if I can come to you.
No, you're right. Actually, there's nothing to demystify. Data centers are going to guzzle power, but what we need to do is we need to make it as energy efficient as possible. And Prasenjit did talk about it. We talked about in Piyush talked about it is, can government help us in this entire thing, because we are going to consume a lot of power. So can we use more renewable power? Can we generate our own power? Like, for example, in CtrlS, we are seeing in the next 7 or 8 years, we want to generate as much power as much as we consume. So zero thing. So that means whatever we want to do. In fact, that's where we put maximum. In fact, Prasenjit also was talking about it, is how do we make sure that we become as efficient as possible? In fact, most of our innovations, in fact, we've got 80 innovations in terms of energy efficiencies, because that is what we feel is going to be the major differentiator for all of us, in fact, because as more and more corporates are becoming aware, they would want, they will try and demand for it. So they will ask for a PUE of a particular value. So they're going to say that, your PUE is as close to 1 as possible. 1 is impossible, but if you're close to 1.3, 1.4, that is when we will, come to you. So I think that pressure is, and then other sources of power, which Prasenjit talked about, be it solar, be it windmill, like we are investing a lot, as much as we are investing in data centers, and we are going to be a data center boom, but we are going to see generation power also being a boom. There's so much, everybody's investing. Prasenjit talked about it. We are talking about 300 megawatts of solar investment that we are intending to do in multiple states where they are allowing us to do it. Of course, they allow us to transport, like what Piyush was saying, storage and transport is becoming an easy, but I think over a period of time, government is also going to know this fact, and probably they'll be forced to do it as well, and that will make it, very easy. So if we are going to consume that much power, we are also going to, and of course, we talked about how do we do it, in the sense, how do we manage, Prasenjit lightly talked about it in the way, how we manage the cooling system. Okay, probably the cooling management system, then, we have the hot air, cold air aisle kind of system, the UPS, how we manage it. There are almost 8, 9, 10, and we try and do most of those things there, so that as much as power that we can save as much as it is possible. If you're able to do only in one data center, solar panel, but there is only 1 megawatt, that is what we could generate, because that's the maximum we can do on a BIPV. So we are trying our best, and this is what probably everybody is doing, but who takes probably more initiatives around it probably will get that advantage. Okay, but that's the need of the hour. Energy efficiency, and there are multiple ways which you can, as I told you, be it the chiller, how you treat the water, how do you manage the air, the cool air, because when you don't mix the hot air and the cold air, how do you do that? So that all of this will save, basically power or electricity. That's how it is.
And what about per rack power density?
Yeah, per rack density is growing. I mean, that's another thing that we have seen. Just 4-5 years back, it used to be 4 or 5 kilowatts per rack, but now it's gone up. It's gone to about 9 or 10. In fact, now there is a requirement of about 15, and very soon it will be 20. Okay, 20 kilowatts per, because you're getting hyper converged. The compute is consuming a lot, and in a short footprint, you're getting a lot of compute that you can do. And when you do such high computing, there's a lot of power requirement that is required. So in one particular rack, probably you'll have many more servers that will go in because the size is smaller. So they will consume a lot of it. So that rack density is increased. So it becomes very important for us to, kind of provide power to those racks, and you have capacity, to do that. So that the rack density, per rack density power is going to increase considerably.
So Piyush, I would like to bring in here for your comment, whether India can sustain the growing power density per rack.
So in our Bangalore data center, we have got a government customer who has taken 32 kilowatts of power per rack. And there are some enterprise customers who are talking to us, and they would be requiring 50 kilowatts of power per rack. And the recent innovations that have happened around GPUs. So one GPU-based rack can consume up to 1 megawatts of power. Those are the innovations that have already happened, which means sooner or later, the data center companies will have to handle those kind of loads also, power loads also in a single rack. Are we in a position to handle those kind of loads? So I don't think so we are capable to handle 32 kW or 50 kW max at the moment is fine. A lot of testing has happened around 80 kilowatts of power per rack also. But then that rack would be eliminating, it would be like probably there's a proper chimney inside your data center, and it is emitting so much of heat, and you are then trying to cool that with non-traditional ways also, because only chillers would not be able to handle 80 kilowatts of power per rack. So then you will need something very unique, something very differentiated. Bangalore is a city where you can use the fresh air also. In Mumbai or in Delhi, that is not possible. But in Bangalore, you have never seen the temperatures crossing 30 degrees Celsius. So I think so that is possible to do something in a city like Bangalore, where you can do a combination of recycled air plus fresh air, and then give that kind of a cooling. But 1 megawatts of power per rack in the future, if that is going to come, it requires a lot more innovation. I don't think so we are ready. European countries have tested that, but then you know what is the temperature in Norway or Netherlands or in Canada, and they can actually manage to do those trials using fresh air. In India, we need to think over it. But what are we doing to change the technology? Can immersion cooling can come, or there can be other types of cooling that can come in picture, which would be completely a radical shift from the current air-based cooling. I want to see a radical shift coming in, where you bring immersion cooling, or where you put the data centers under water itself directly, or in the sea itself, and then exchange the heat directly with the sea, exchange the heat directly with big water reservoirs. If that kind of concept can come, we will immediately get rid of this heat load. The 30% of your power of a data center is lost in cooling the equipments. One is that you are putting 70% of your power in heating the equipments, and then 30% of the power is going in cooling the equipment. So if that cooling load can be exchanged, the heat exchange can be done directly with the sea or with the water reservoirs. No? In case of a large water reservoir, let's say even 1 crore liter of like 10 million liters of a water reservoir, a data center, a 50 megawatts of data center, even if it exchanges heat with that 10 million liters of water, the temperature during the daytime will not even rise by 1 degree Celsius. And during the night time, when it radiates the heat with the sky, so the sky temperature at night time is minus 22 degrees Celsius. So though definitely the temperature comes down without loss of water, like without evaporation, you will be able to get rid of that heat during the night time. So this is something which is naturally available to us, and we will have to start thinking on that. If we are dependent on the companies that are coming from abroad and saying that, okay, I have a technology and you use this technology, it will not work. India will have to innovate on its own to figure out a solution to exchange the heat of the data centers.
All right, Piyush, a very paradoxical observation for me that India is, facing acute water shortage. Now, when you are talking about that, we'll use the water. So that means the data center will be closer to the water reservoir wherever it is available.
That was one of the suggestions which Piyush had. It's still, it's not being tested. In fact, it is just being tested. It's not yet in. If that comes into picture, then he says that we need a reservoir. But at the same time, he's saying it will not impact anything from a water. You might have to come closer to the reservoir, but it will not impact probably the depth, because he said that that heat consumption over probably 1 million liter of water, it will not impact so much. So of course it's one of the technology, because what we that's what I just wanted to re-summarize is basically we'll have to make a drastic shift, because currently on one rack 30 to 50 probably is possible, but anything above 50 is, we need to change the technology, very clear. So that is still under anvil, and like he rightly said, the other countries which are doing it, they have the air which is anyway cool, whereas our air is not cool. So that's where the problem is.
All right, Piyush, thank you very much. Now let's shift the gear and move to other things, other aspects of DC, which is enabling your cloud connects, your internet connects, and or CDN players, which have got a major role in digital transformation. I'll bring in Anand here. Anand, I think you are one of the players in the interconnect space or cloud connect space. So how do you see interconnect playing here, and what's the role of DCs in the interconnect space?
I think this is a very good question. So when you talk about data centers, normally we talk about space, we talk about power, we talk about cooling, and network sometimes, most of the time, not sometimes, takes a backseat. Any questions about network? Normally the answer is we have 3 or 4 fiber paths inside our data centers. Considering the complexity in deployment of workloads, wherein you have workloads across public cloud, private cloud, captive, inside the DC, this is not helping. And in a previous presentation, Amit spoke about the latencies, peering not being available in India. There are a host lot of challenges as far as network goes, right? We at Werks have been trying to address this challenge. We have been trying to simplify this. And I can proudly say we are ahead of the curve. We are the most network dense data center in India right now. We have more than 200 ISPs inside our data center. We have more than 3 internet exchange hosted inside our data center. We have interconnect ecosystem with all the public clouds, whether you talk about AWS, Azure, GCP or Oracle. We have interconnects with all the CDN providers. We have interconnects with all the payment companies. We have interconnects with all the content providers and many more. I can go on, keep telling this. So as the complexity of deployment has increased, customers are looking beyond network now. You cannot just tell customers that we have 3 telcos private telcos inside a data center, and that will take care of your network needs. Today, customer want beyond that because latency has become a major challenge, and that is and once you have made a lot of connectivities inside, obviously it takes up your cost also. That's where we come into picture. What we can do is, if you are inside our data center, just by enabling a cross connect, you connect to any of the public clouds. You can connect to a private cloud which is there, and you can also connect to the colocation that you have inside our data center. So that's the differentiating factor we bring on the table. Obviously, it helps you to manage that network in a better way. It helps you to reduce latency, better customer experiences, and obviously at the end of the day helps you reduce the cost. Cost is one of the prime factors when you look at public cloud. And if you look at interconnect ecosystem, that is one of the driving force which can help you bring down your cost by at least 20-30%.
All right, Anand, thank you very much. So before we conclude, let's discuss a little bit about hyperscalers. So much of investment is happening. It's an open question to all of you. Anybody can answer this. So what's the future of hyperscaler? What's happening around that? Maybe anybody, I don't have any particular person to answer.
In fact, Piyush did answer that. Hyperscalers are going to grow. And in fact, in India, we see a phenomenal growth happening with AWS, with Microsoft, and now GCP also. All three are growing probably more than 30-40%. And that probably the growth will continue. The customers who are looking at scalability and immediate, in fact, startups are the first one who will adapt to the hyperscalers very clearly, because they can scale when they want and they can, kind of plug off when they want. But as the startups get matured or any enterprises get matured, they'll find it more economical to go to a private cloud or a co-location setup. That's very clear. So the pie will continue to go around. There'll be enough space for everybody. So hyperscaler will grow. Hyperscaler are currently co-located with all of us as of now. Might be later on stage. As they grow, they might look at making their own data centers, but that's also a few years away. But that's going to happen. So there is going to be growth for them. There's going to be, because there is about 70-80% of the market which is on-premise. And that's the market which probably the hyperscalers and all of us are also looking at. So there's going to be cake for everybody. Okay, and that's how that's again comes back to the amount of boom that is going to happen in India. So they will also grow, and we will also continue to grow. And in a way, we will compete, like Piyush before that also said, there is going to be a competition, but the customers will have a choice. Okay, and for depending on their needs, they're going to shift from either private or public or colo. So that's going to be there. So there's the growth story will be there for all of us.
All right. Thank you, Paresh. Before I wrap up, if you have any questions, you can answer. We'll try to answer from the gentlemen, the stakeholders of the data centers. Yeah.
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, all industry veterans are here. Can you tell me that if suppose war-like situation is going to come, then how data center is going to protect for our servers?
Piyush, you want to answer that? War-like situation comes. We both can take that. But Piyush, you go ahead.
Yeah, Paresh, I'll take that. So, see, you have to be prepared, because I heard from a lot of Ukrainians that in their nightmares also, they never thought that there can be a war, but finally they saw it coming. And humans have that problem, actually. More and more luxury you get, more and more comfort you get, more and more uncivilized you try to become, and intolerant you try to become. So that can happen to us anytime. We all have to accept it. And when we design data centers, we actually design with all those thoughts in mind, that earthquake can come on a Richter scale of 8 or 10, it can happen, 8 or 9, it can happen, or floods can come. you should not put a data center on the ground floor. So you try to put all the equipments either on first floor or second floor, and above that. So those things you always take care. Plus you have to distribute, like if you will see all the big cloud service providers in India, they have distributed their primary and secondary across regions. So if the primary is running in Mumbai, then the secondary is running in Bangalore or Hyderabad. So everyone does that kind of a distribution. So enterprises will also, those who take private cloud, they should also have a distributed computing, and then it should be at least 500 kilometers apart. You should not, just because the two regions, seismic zone regions are 100 kilometers apart, so I put primary in zone 3 and secondary in zone 2. That should not be the case. You should always target to have more than 500 kilometers of a distance. And then some of your critical data, which is very, very important for survival of your organization, that you should also keep in a third location, another location where you actually preserve that data. Because I have seen in my career of last 19 years, I have also seen businesses getting completely shut down. They lost their some confidential data and the business never came online again. So that can also happen. People actually do not understand value of the data until and unless that data is lost. So you don't want to see that kind of a situation where the entire business shuts down because of loss of the data. Yeah. So
I hope that question is answered. So basically, if a war comes, our building will be the last building to fall, number one. And then, it is protected in other zone as well. So they'll have to hit all the locations. That's one. But third, what was very important, which I wanted to emphasize is, like banks are already making near DRs. Probably, like Piyush said, if you could secure really critical data in a particular manner, probably on premise or some third location, that also would help. So that's probably.
Yeah. So on a lighter note, if Ukrainians would have chosen other than Russia, they could have been much safer. If you, so I'll go for a lighter question in terms of asking in terms of a customer perspective. See, today the customer has got a choice, right? You have a choice of choosing a cloud service provider, right? And that is the dilemma that the customer goes through at every stage, whatever stage you are in, whether you already adopted cloud or a new entrant. I think that is very important. And the question I think I would like to ask Prasenjit, because marketing side is that dilemma is being handled by the marketing team. So Prasenjit, your intakes on that.
Yeah, it's actually a very good question. And that is where I think most, in fact, the role that we play to answer it, as we come as a neutral, as a consultant, okay? And we first assess what the problem is and give a solution which is vendor agnostic, okay? We leave it to the particular customer to decide, because if you try to force it down his throat, sooner or later he's going to revolt. So play the role of a consultant, give your options to him, and in case he needs guidance, etc., then you can do a handhold. But when we come and try to pitch, we play a very neutral role, because we understand that every solution has to be different based on what the customer is on the plate and what is he going through. You can answer the question.
Thank you, Prasenjit.
Any more questions? Okay. I would really like to thank, I believe this is probably going to be the best session for the day. It was scintillating, it was insightful, it went to areas that probably a lot of people in the industry are not really thinking at this moment. Renewable energy, power, from power guzzlers, probably data centers could, it seems from the conversation, become like power generators. And where innovation is coming to the forefront in areas that we have not even thought about. And I think, sir, your question takes the icing on the cake with the question on the war and how data centers are prepared. I could see Paresh, in fact, he's still smiling all the way. So, and Sanjay, I think it was a splendid job, the kind of questions and the kind of pertinent points that you put across. I believe this particular session really needs a huge round of applause. If you agree with me, please, let's give them a great hand.
Thank you, Dhruvi. I think she concluded nicely. I didn't have any scope to say anything, but she was yes, she was the most attentive one, I can say.
Love this discussion.
All right, then. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Paresh Shetty, President, Sales, CtrlS, Data Center, sitting on my left. Thank you very much, Paresh, for taking time out. And made it a point that you will be here and speak to the audience. So minded the audience here, and the double of this audience is on virtual world, which is being enabled by you. I mean, you in the sense the data center companies. So Piyush Somani, who is connected over Zoom platform, he is the managing director and chairman ESDS Data Centers. Thank you, Piyush. There are many questions to ask you. Maybe some other occasion and other time we'll discuss about it. Prasenjit Roy, Senior Executive Vice President, CMO, Entity Global Data Center and Cloud Infrastructure India. Thank you, Prasenjit, for being here, though on a virtual mode. Thank you again. Anand Singh, India Head, Co-Location and Cloud Business, Werks Data Center, Iron Mount Data Center Joint Venture. Thank you very much for Anand for coming here. So the end thing is that this is going to grow and it is becoming a hub. India is becoming a hub of data center, and always this this fight about or the hue and cry about it becoming power guzzler is going to stay, and obviously there will be innovations as Piyush pointed out. So also sustainability is going to grow, we have miles to go after this, I think. Thank you, gentlemen, and wish you safe wherever you are. Wish you a safety weekend ahead. Thank you very much.